We've been doing a series on just trying to give people a realistic picture about what to expect in recovery. What's realistic recovery look like? And tonight I thought I'd go in a little different direction, and I want to talk about realistic picture of the kind of people that you might meet in recovery. Probably will meet. I have to say up front that in recovery, you're going to meet some of the most wonderful, sincere people that you could probably find anywhere in life. They've had enough pain and they've had enough playing games and lying that they've gotten real and they've got serious about life and they've been willing to do some deep changes. And those people are in recovery, and sadly, there's not a lot of those kind of people out there. So you will find that. But within recovery, you're also going to find some people who are very dangerous. People that are not only immature, but there's an unhealthiness there that if you are around them, and you probably will encounter them, they will trigger things in you that could set you down an old path that could end in a relapse, or they could begin to draw you into their web and affect you without you even realizing you're being affected by them until it's too late. So I want to give you 9 different people that you're going to meet in recovery. And I'm going to do the 9 negative type people. The good people, those are, well, we'll talk about that at the end. So the first one that you're going to meet, and this one actually just kind of breaks my heart at times. Sadly, in recovery, you're going to encounter a lot of predators. People that are in recovery going to meetings just to find someone to either be a girlfriend, boyfriend, or have sex with. And it's sad to me because you want recovery to be a safe place for people. You want it to be a place where they can go and not be having to worry about boundaries with people to keep themselves safe. But those people out there, and they seem to really be attracted to recovery type meetings. So what you find with many of them is that they come across initially as very charming. They're very nice. They're very considerate. The technical word that we use for that is they're grooming you, and that is they're being nice to break down your defenses, to get you to drop your guard, to get you to trust them, and they will do very kind things for you, and it appears like there's no strings attached. And then you start to open up and trust them. And as soon as they feel that they've got you, then it just changes. And then you go to a very dangerous place where you can't get rid of them. And that becomes very dangerous for a person in recovery. What is tricky with it, on top of what I just said, is that for a lot of people, initially they show what seems to be innocent interest in you. They may ask you out for coffee, or they may just text you. And you feel, okay, that seems all right. That seems safe. We're in recovery together. We're on the same journey. That can't be bad. But once you give into that, then they've got you. And then you've got a huge problem on your hands. And I don't want to say this is a problem that women experience solely, because I do think there are women predators as well. But I do think for young women, this can be just a very frustrating, difficult part of recovery for them. Now I'm going to talk about how to respond to them in a bit. But the second person that you will probably meet in recovery are the bad boys or the bad girls, or the people that still are kind of fulfilling a persona or a role. So they come in and they just go into their zone. And they act the bad boy, and that's all they know how to do. What I want you to think about with that, and what is sad to me about that, is what I know as an addictions counselor is before a person can really change, get recovery, get healthy, they have to drop all of those roles. They have to be willing to become real, genuine, which is feeling very vulnerable. If a person's not willing to do that, and they just hang on to that image usually they may not relapse, but they're not going to do very well in recovery as far as getting healthy. What is dangerous to me about the bad boy, bad girl is that I know, so if I take the bad boy, I know that a lot of girls just are attracted to that. And so as soon as a bad boy walks in, all these girls are just googly-eyed at him and following them around and drooling, and they get drawn into wanting the attention of the bad boy. And that, without them even realizing the power of the pull on them, can lead them back into relationships that become very unhealthy and dangerous for them. So you're not only going to get bad boy, bad girl personas, you're going to get people who just go into helping everybody, being in charge, all of that, and people get drawn into their web because they're so helpful and giving, and they're there for you, and all of that, and without realizing it, they're just controlling everything, and you get sucked into that kind of thing. So you are going to meet those people. So let me, before I go on to the others, just give you some of the response stuff that I want you to think about. Number one, pay attention to your gut. Pay attention to the red flags that you feel when you meet somebody. And you, I think, know that for most of you, your gut is fairly accurate. Your radar picks up things that go beyond just what the person presents. And you pick up what they're really like. And you get red flags waving. Now, you all have gone through experiences where you've had 1,000 red flags waving and you've ignored everyone because you've been so desperate to be loved or in a relationship. But you know those all go south in a hurry. So learn to listen to your gut. Secondly, in recovery, don't get drawn into a relationship too quickly. There is so much wisdom in just being cautious, keeping people more at a distance while you get to know what they're like, not letting them draw you into a more close relationship than you know is wise. So pay attention to those things. Then, if you aren't prepared to set firm boundaries, you're never going to succeed in recovery. Because these people are going to push your boundaries. They're going to try to get you to undo the no that you just gave them. Or to just let them walk over your no's as if they don't matter. If you don't learn to mean your no and reinforce that and stick to it, you just don't do well in recovery because of these kind of people. So, learn boundaries and stick to them. And sometimes, in order for them to hear that you really mean your boundary, you got to be a little bit rude with some. If you say nicely, don't do that, they go, oh, they don't mean it because they're not being forceful enough. So sometimes for a person that's been very polite all their life, to set a firm boundary with them, they feel like they're being so mean and so rude, but that's the only message some people will hear. And then, sadly, for some, especially predator types, you might just have to do more drastic things, blocking them and not letting them in, not responding to anything they do to try to get you to talk to them. You might have to do all of those things, and that's going to feel very uncomfortable. In some cases, you might have to tell some people about it in order to help protect yourself from people like that. Now, what I think is the challenge for many people is this. I get people come to me all the time and say, "There's that guy's a predator, and he's just bugging me," and I go, "Set boundaries." And they go, "No, I'm going to go to a different group." And I go, "Well, you're going to find him at that group too." And then they go to that group, and sure enough, there's predators, and they go, "Oh, I'll go to a different group." I go, "You're going to be going to groups to the rest of your life until you learn how to say no to them so they stop bugging you." But they don't like to do that. So what I say sometimes as an intermediate step to people is this. Have somebody with you by your side the whole time you're at a meeting. And if that guy comes towards you, make sure the person at your side is 6'6", 300 pounds, and they just step in front. And then they'll get the picture. But sometimes, that's a bit of facetious, but sometimes you need somebody with you just to give you the courage to stick to your guns and to help you not to get drawn in. So those are just very introductory things about dealing with some of these people. Okay, next one. You will meet greasy people. You will meet hustlers. You all know what I mean. You've probably been there. These are the people that are always working an angle, always working an agenda. They seem to be talking about your kids, but they're just getting to know you so they can figure out how to slip their agenda in. So in a sense, it's the predator, but it takes it beyond just relationship sexual stuff. This is just a predator in general that's not concerned about how to love people. They don't know how to do that. They only know how to use people. They act like they care. They act like they're a good friend, but that's just to get you to open up to them, and then their agenda comes out. And before you know it, you're supplying cigarettes to them, giving them rides everywhere, slipping them $20 every other day, and you are their bank, their taxi. You're just about everything that they need. And so you will meet those people in recovery. They're all over recovery. And again, you need boundaries with them. Some of these people, they will do different manipulation games. They will try to guilt trip you that you're not a very good person because you're not giving them a ride. Or they're going to get angry at you. They're going to accuse you of stuff. They're going to get somebody else to talk to you to try to say what's up with you and that person. They break you down. They can play all kinds of games, but they're always trying to use you. And if you let people use you, they don't respect you. Soon as you let people use you, they lose respect. And so you have to learn to respect yourself enough to say, I'm not going to let that happen. And if I lose this person as a friend, I'd rather lose them as a friend than to lose respect for myself and be drawn into a relationship where I'm going to get used all the time. That is not a healthy relationship, never can be, and I'm not going to begin to get drawn into that. The next one, the narcissist. Now that's tied in with the greasy a little bit. The narcissist is kind of bigger than that. It's a bigger picture and it's a little broader, but it's the person who life is all about them. They have this inflated view of themselves. But what I want you to understand up front about the narcissist is actually narcissists have a very low view of themselves that they've denied. They have tons and tons of shame, but it is so painful. They have shut down that part of their life. They refuse to look at that, and they overcompensate by acting like they're better than everybody. And they think everybody that says hi to them either adores them or is in love with them. They are so absorbed with themselves. Now, they can be super charming people. They can be super good at helping a shy person feel comfortable to talk and to talk to people. All of those things, people warm up to them because they're so easy to talk to. But once they get you into their web, they want to control you. And so what they are depending on is this. They're going to find people who have just as much shame as them, but who haven't compensated by going to the other extreme. They look for people who hate themselves. They walk around down on themselves all the time, and they help those people. And then those people adore them. and say, you are wonderful. You are the best person in the world. And that's their game until they enter into a more committed relationship, and then they demand that they be the only person in the world that you adore. Nobody else can be in your life that you like or want to spend time with. They want it all. And they will bleed you dry and make you even hate yourself more. So that's a narcissist, and they are in recovery. Sadly to me, one of the things that come out of complex trauma is there's a lot of people who have shame issues that end up narcissistic. That's just a reality in recovery because of complex trauma. Once you're in a relationship with them, that narcissist in their mind is never wrong. If you have conflict, they will always twist it so that you're wrong, so that you're the bad guy. It will never be their fault. And they will be the hero of every story, and they will always be a little bit better than everybody else, and you are nothing more to them than a trophy on their arm. So you are all about making them look good or even better than they think they already look. So you are not allowed to make them look bad. You're the only one that can look bad, never them, and they will tear you down. It is usually ends up in an abusive type relationship. So sadly, they're there. Number 5, you will meet needy people. Now there's an important thing with looking at a needy person. There's a healthy needy and an unhealthy needy. A healthy needy is a person who has a need that they can't meet themselves. They're meeting the needs they have that they should be meeting, but they have some needs they can't meet, and they reach out for help. That's a healthy needy. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a person that has a need that they should be meeting themselves, but they don't want to grow up enough to do that. And so they go looking for people to meet that need for them and allow them to remain immature, childlike, never grow up. And so as soon as you end up with a person like that, they basically want you to be responsible for part of themselves that they should be responsible for, and they will cause you to burn out. Because when you meet that need, then they have another need and another need and another need, and pretty soon you're their mommy or their daddy, and you're going to burn out. And they are there. What I have always said to clients is, if I'm working harder than you are on your recovery, we got a problem. Because it's only when you're working on your recovery with everything you got, and I'm there as a supporter, and I will meet some of the needs that I should be meeting, then recovery works. But as soon as you start being irresponsible and meeting your needs and want me to do it for you, you're not interested in recovery anymore. You're interested in being babysat. And I'm not willing to do that. And so that becomes the challenge in recovery, because there's a lot of need. There's a lot of people with legitimate needs, but there's a lot of people who don't want to grow up. So you have to figure out how to deal with that. Number 6, you're going to have some people who pity you and see you as a project. You're an addict, that means you're screwed up. So let's go rescue them and fix them up. And great, we're going to save them and we'll feel better. Now, some people who do this are addicts trying to rescue other addicts. Some are not addicts, but they come and rescue and see you as a project. Sometimes they come from a very good place. Other times they come from, some sincere desire to help, but there's other motivations involved. So for some people, if they can all of a sudden show off to all their friends, look at this person that I'm helping, makes them look good. You're now their poster child. You're their trophy, and it's all about them, not about you. And then the second one is you'll get people that go to church and the preacher will say, you've got so many wonderful things in your life. What are you doing to help those who don't have them? And everybody leaves feeling guilty. So what do? Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll go help an addict, and then we'll get rid of our guilt. So they go give money to everybody they see, and I go, you didn't help them there. You relieved your guilt, but you probably just bought them another rock or two. So you didn't really help them, but it's not really about what's best for them. It's about what takes away my guilt. And that's not a good motivation. And then some have a hidden agenda. One of the things that happens with people that see you as a project is they always think they're better than you. And one of the things that I've observed, that often the people that want to make you a project are more messed up than you are. They just never figured that part out yet. So you're going to meet people like that, and they can be super frustrating. Okay, a couple more to go here. You're going to meet a lot of bitter, negative people. One of the things that we've seen from complex trauma is that you become focused, your brain becomes focused on looking for danger. So your brain becomes focused on negative. And so when you are in a situation, you find a problem, focus on that problem, and as soon that problem just is the worst thing in the world, and you're out of there. So you become very negative focused. Now, you come into recovery and you get 100 of those people together. Now, in their growing up, nobody validated their negative. They were said, get over it, you're making too big a deal out of it. Now you get into recovery and you got a negative bone to pick, and you're hearing somebody over here going, this is such a terrible place. Woo! I want to go find out and talk to them. And they validate all your negative stuff. Now you have just created this intimacy around negative. So every meeting you can't wait to get there because you're going to talk to your new friend about how rotten everybody is. And now we are buddies. Then you find out they're telling other people about how rotten you are, and it's all done. So be aware you get drawn into negative easily because that's been your normal. And it feels good to finally talk about stuff where other people agree with you, but it can be very dangerous. Too much time around negative can put you in a really bad headspace. So be aware, there's a lot of those kind of people. Next one, self-righteous people. So they have this great need to feel they're a little more righteous than everybody else. So they will find one thing that they do well and compare everybody else to that. So they're very religious. Everybody that's not religious is less than them. They're very good at managing their money. Everybody that's got debt problems is a loser. And they look down their nose. They find a way to look down their nose at everybody. Now, some people try to get those people to like them. Try to get those people to validate them. And they put a lot of energy into gaining the validation of those kind of people. It doesn't usually happen. And you can be burnt badly because of that. Final one, prejudge. So people in recovery, there's not tons of them, but they're there. So you come in and they go, one too many tattoos for my liking, you're bad. Too many piercings, you're bad. Oh, they're living together and all of that, they're bad. They prejudge you based on their own made-up standard. And so they, again, are the kind of people you're going to encounter. That doesn't matter what you do, it'll never be good enough because they've already decided you're not good enough. And there's nothing you can do to change that. So with those self-righteous people, those people that prejudge you, just ignore them. Don't go around saying, why don't they like me? Why don't they like me? say, they're screwed up. I don't have to get them to like me. I've got other people around here. I can build a relationship. But don't take on all of their crap, because that will mess you up. Okay, let me say a couple final comments. As you can see, recovery is full of dangerous people. So you can look around at everybody and rate them 1 to 10 on just kind of how dangerous they are. But that is a reality in recovery. So another way to say that, everybody I think knows recovery is like a hospital. It's not for a bunch of healthy people to come to and say, what can we do? It's where people who are very broken, very damaged, very sick come into, and they say, we want to get healthy. So now you're in a hospital full of very unhealthy people wanting to get healthy, but not all want to get healthy. So you're trying to get healthy in an environment where there's danger, where there's some people who aren't with the program. And those are the ones you have to learn to deal with. You can try to go to different meetings. They're there too. It's you that needs to figure out what you need to do to deal with that. So, your recovery success will depend to a large part on how you learn to deal with those kind of people. If you don't learn to deal with those kind of people, then you're probably not going to do well. So that becomes a very important piece, and it's why we emphasize boundaries so much in recovery, because of that. Now, sadly, for some of you, your biological family has all 9 of those people. So you can't even go home without encountering it. But what you realize is, if I don't learn how to set boundaries with my family, I'm probably not going to make it. So I have to figure that out. And then I get asked this all the time, and it's the one question I probably struggle with more than any others. Clients will say to me, Tim, where can I find a healthy person? I go, wow. They go, I went to church, they're full of sick people. I go, yep. So I thought they'd be full of all kinds of healthy people. Yeah, so die. So, but I can't go to a bar anymore. I can't go to a club room anymore. Where do I find healthy people? I think that's one of the hardest things in our culture today. You realize our culture is not creating healthy people naturally? We're creating people who live by their limbic brain, who live for immediate gratification of their desires. They are not going to end up real healthy. And so we are in a culture now where we're trying to get healthy in an environment that's not healthy. In other words, we're swimming against the current. So this is where you have to be patient, and you have to be able to say, I'm going to have to sit in a bit of loneliness. I'm going to have to sit in a bit of feeling frustrated. But I need to begin checking out people with character and have criteria of what that character looks like, and gradually get to know people, and hopefully within 6 months to a year, I'll start to find a couple healthy people I can build a relationship with. It's possible. But you got to be patient, you got to have a standard, and you got to be prepared to go through a few disappointments, but it becomes so important even though it's so difficult. So, just finishing Christmas, just talked about all of the messed up people that we encounter and deal with, including ourselves in recovery. And I thought, what am I going to do for the Christian part of this? So there's part of the Christmas story that is actually the most boring part that I find the most exciting part. And I hope I can make that clear to you. It's found in Matthew 1, and Matthew 1 is the very beginning of the New Testament, or the last half of the Bible. So let me just read how it begins. This is the record of the ancestors of Jesus, the Messiah, the descendant of David and Abraham. Get ready, it's going to get exciting. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, whose mother was Tamar. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Now that's only the first 4 verses. It goes for another 20 of that. So let me explain it to you and why I find it exciting. When you look at the messed up people that we deal with in recovery, at the time when Jesus came into the world, the religions of the Jewish religion at that time basically said, God only likes good people. If you're messed up, you're not welcome. Sounds like some churches today. And so that was really the approach. So Matthew is sitting down to write to these Jewish people, and he wants them to think through whether their kind of exclusive mentality that only good people are welcome here and God only loves good people, to see how wrong that is, and to see that God loves very, very messed up people. So he includes the genealogy, and part of that was necessary to show that Jesus qualified to be the king or the Messiah, and so that's one part of it. But there's another part. In a Jewish genealogy at that time, if you were to follow it, it went from one man to his son, to his son, to his son, men only. What Matthew does in this genealogy is he sticks in 5 women. Now that immediately would raise eyebrows. So one of the women is Mary, the mother of Jesus. The other 4, not only were they women, it'd be like one of those things, if you were to go to your grandma's house and you dropped an F-bomb or two, and she would go like that. Well, that's what would happen when they heard these other 4 names of these 4 women. Matthew is showing that when God was choosing a family for the Messiah, for Jesus, he included some super messed up people. And he said, welcome to the family, and I want my son's family tree to have a lot of screwed up people. So I want to quickly tell you the stories of the 4 women that Matthew includes. So Tamar is the first one. So if you look back at Israel, the beginning of Israel was a guy named Abraham. And Abraham had 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael. And God chose Isaac to be the line of the Jewish people. Isaac had 2 sons, Jacob and Esau. God chose Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons that became the 12 tribes of Israel. Judah is one of those sons. Okay, Judah has 3 sons. And I don't know if you followed when I read that little bit, I included Judah. So he's looking for a wife for his first son, his oldest son. And he finds this girl named Tamar. Don't know why he picked her, whether she was very pretty or wealthy or what. But he picks Tamar. Now I guess Judah's oldest son was a jerk. And he just lived a terrible life. And one day he drops dead. And probably Tamar said, good riddance, bye. Now in that culture, if your older brother died without having had children, and you're not married yet, you're the second son, you were required to marry his wife, the widow, and have children for your brother so that his name would not die out. So son number 2 gets married to Tamar, and we're told, and this is in the Bible, if you want to check it out, every time they had sex and he got close to an orgasm, he pulled out and he didn't ejaculate inside of her, so she never got pregnant. One day he drops dead. So good old Judah, dad, is saying, whoever marries this woman dies. I've got 1 son left. There's no way she's going to marry this, my youngest son. So he concocts a story that says, you know what, my youngest son is still too young to marry. You go back to your family, and when he's old enough, I'll call you and we'll set up the wedding. Not. So she goes back. After a couple of years, she realizes Judah's not going to let me marry the youngest son. But I'm a widow. And in that culture, widows didn't stand a good chance of getting remarried. So she is sitting there thinking, I am basically doomed now to a life where I am going to be single now for the rest of my life and never have any kids of my own. And in that culture, that was not good because there weren't jobs for women outside of prostitution. She said, I didn't want to go that route. I want to get married because only men had jobs. So she's really caught. So she comes up with a plan that goes like this. She hears that Judah has sheep in the area. He was a shepherd, and he's going to be coming to go out to the fields. So she says, I'm going to dress up. On the day he's going down the street to where his sheep are at, I'm going to dress up like a prostitute because I heard he's horny. So she dresses up like a prostitute, hides her identity. He stops, has sex with her, says, I can't pay you, but will you keep this little thing and I'll come back one day and pay you? And so she gets pregnant. And that's where the next one came from in the genealogy of Jesus. Wow, isn't that a great family tree? How would you like to tell that to your kids? Let me tell you about your great-great-grandma. She had sex with her father-in-law, acted like a prostitute to get him into bed, and then got pregnant. Now that's only number one. Number two is this lady called Rahab, and she was a professional prostitute. But from the story in the beginning of the book of Joshua, we are told that she was a very, very good prostitute and become quite wealthy from being one of the best prostitutes around. Somehow, after Israel came into that land, she said, I want to follow your God. And she became a follower of God, and she got married to a Jewish man. Now you've got Tamar sleeping with a father-in-law, professional prostitute who's a really good one. Now that's your family tree so far. Number three, this gets really bad. We're next told about a lady called Ruth. Now what's interesting about Ruth is Ruth ended up marrying a Jew, but she was from the nation of Moab, which is just across from Israel, across the Jordan River and the Dead Sea. That nation had been cursed because of how it started. So I got to take you back to Abraham, the start of the Jewish people. He came into Israel, the area there, and he brought his nephew Lot. Lot wasn't that interested in following Abraham's God, and he got drawn down to this city area called Sodom and Gomorrah. Some of you have heard of that? They got wiped out by a volcano. Anyways, it was a really kind of morally decayed, decadent, corrupt place. And he got in there, he got established there, he became kind of a leader in that city. He was super involved, had a wife and 2 daughters. And God came and said, this city's going to get destroyed. I want to give you a chance to escape. So he went with his daughters and his wife and escaped. And his wife, she just didn't want to escape. She turned around longing to go back to that lifestyle. And we're told she was turned into a pillar of salt. Lot gets his 2 daughters out to a cave. And they've watched the city get destroyed by a volcano. And they're up there, these 2 daughters, and they go, well, there goes all of our young men dead. Now we can't get married. There's nobody but Dad, us left. We don't have kids, either of us, so here's our plan. Daughter 1, we're going to get Dad really drunk tonight. You take him to bed, sleep with him. Hopefully you'll get pregnant. Next night, I'll get Dad drunk. Daughter 2, I'll sleep with Dad. And then hopefully I'll get pregnant. And that's what they did, and that's where Moab came from, where Ruth came from. How would you like that in your family tree? Now you got a double incest situation. Let's get dad drunk enough to sleep with his daughters, and let's get pregnant. Wow. And then number 4, it's going to feel real mild after those ones. Good old Bathsheba has an affair with King David, so she's an adulteress, cheats on her husband and has an affair with David, gets pregnant, and then out of all of that comes Jesus. Now, isn't that an amazing genealogy all of a sudden? It just got really interesting. And all of a sudden you go, why is Matthew sticking in, of all the women he could have stuck in the genealogy, why does he pick those 4? I think you see why. He wants to say, guys, God loves those kind of people. God wants those people in his family. Now, there's another thing that Matthew does, and I did it on a little graph here. He divides the genealogy into 3 groups of 14. So 14 generations, 14 generations, 14 generations. There's really more than 14 generations in each one, but he does it by 14s, probably because in that culture, you didn't have Bibles that you could sit down and read. The only way you would get to really know your Bible was you had to memorize it. And that's what kids did. They memorized their Bibles. And so what would be an easy way to remember a genealogy? Go, 14, okay, I got those ones right. 14, got those ones right. So that's how they help kids memorize it. But when you look at the 14s, it follows this very interesting thing. So the first 14 goes from Abraham, the father, the founder of the nation of Israel, up to King David. And that was the highest point in Israel's existence. They became the wealthiest nation in the world, the most powerful nation in the world. Everybody from all over the world came to them because they were such a great nation, thanks to King David. The next 14, they go from their greatness to being so messed up, they get captured by a foreign army and taken into captivity. Then the last 14, and Jesus comes at the end of the last 14, we don't even know the people in that. There's nothing written about them in the Bible. They are nobodies. And what we know from history is that was the 400 most dark years of Israel's existence. They stooped to a place that was so low, they hit a bottom that was so ugly, nothing in their history compared to where they ended up just before Jesus came. And what does Matthew want us to see? We would expect Jesus to have come after David, when Israel was at its greatest, when it was the most glorious nation in the world. When does Jesus come? When Israel is one screwed up, messed up group of people. Why? Because those are the ones he came for. He didn't come as a doctor for people who thought they were healthy. He came to people who knew they were sick and messed up. So Matthew is answering a question that every addict who becomes serious about a spiritual relationship with God asks. I've heard about this God. I don't know if he would like me. I've done some pretty crappy things. And Matthew says, you haven't read the genealogy yet. Go back and read that genealogy. You fit right in with his family. God wants you as part of this messed up bunch that he is working to get healthier and healthier. Now, you'll never read the genealogy the same again. Welcome to the family.